Hi everybody, I'm Charles Hofer. I'm an Amiga-aholic, for which I'm told there's no cure. So a little bit about me. I have my own company. I'm a Cisco guy. I'm a CCIE. When I got it in '09, there was like 5,400 of us in the country. I do routing and switching. I call myself a Marine. I go into companies that have network issues, and I fix them, and I either support them or I give it back to their IT staff. That's what I do. A little bit about the logo here. I actually did that on PageStream. I am not artsy at all, as my daughter will attest. But I did that all on PageStream, and he's 20 years old, but I modified him. He's Bite, that's what I call him, my mascot. And if you notice on there, there's all little Amiga things, and he's actually X5000. So there's my little mascot. So I'm an Amiga-aholic. It's not an addiction, more of a passion. I started in 1988. I got my first Amiga 2000 HD and a 1084, not a 1084S monitor. I graduated high school in '85. I'm really dating myself now. In high school, we had TRS-80 Model 3s and 4s, and we had the Apple IIe's. I didn't really care for the Apples. We played Wizardry on it. Wizardry was fun. I got into Commodore in '83. My sister bought us a VIC-20 for the family with a cassette tape. My buddies had a 64. They would play this game Ultima, and there was like Ultima 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they'd play it for hours. I was never really into that. I got an associate degree in electronics. So you can't blame me anymore for my addiction. And my wife wanted me to, who's watching the webcast, she wanted me to bring up the clock. She says, don't forget the clock. And she was mad at Amiga Kit because she got that for my Christmas present a couple of years ago, and there was some delay in shipping. I don't know if it was the little Amiga logo that comes with it or something, but we got it like January 10th. So she wasn't happy. So then my daughter, who's here, a few years ago, and at the 37th year, we started making cakes every July. And then this year, for the 39th, we got the checkerboard square mold, because we wanted to make the actual checkerboard cake that he AI'd. But the batter was a little bit runny, and it turned into more of a marble cake inside, but it was good. It's cake. I mean, like it says, let them eat cake. And of course, I'm a big Eric Schwartz fan. I actually met him in '95, and he signed my the one CD I bought from him. But yeah, we love Amy the Squirrel and all his characters. So you're going to see them throughout, and I hope I don't, infringe on any copyrights with Eric or anything. I didn't get permission, but I thought I'd give him kudos throughout the presentation. And well, in memory of the folks that brought us the Amiga. And I guess Dave Needle passed in like 16 or 17. So here's my Amiga collection. I have 15 Amigas. It wasn't like I went out and bought them. It's just like some of it I fell into. But I have 2 Amiga 500s, one with a Bodega Bay. I have a 1000 in a box. I have a rare A2000 with an 060 Blizzard board. I have 5 4000s, 2 4000Ts with 060s. I got 2 Ds with 060s, and then one kind of, and I'll explain later about the mediator and how that came. I have the CD TV with the professional package, which means it has keyboard, mouse, and external floppy. I have the CD32 with the SX32, and it actually has where you can get a 40-pin hard drive and 8 mega RAM and so forth. I actually have, in the new generation of Amigas, I have a Amiga 1 XE, but I retired that for the 5000. I have one 5000, I have a SAM 4060 LE, and I just got my 1222. It's still in the box. I haven't built it yet. Does this make up? So in '86, I got into computers since my high school had a Radio Shack, so I bought a Radio Shack. Bought it for $400 used, only had one floppy. It was the big one. And then in my school, in the computer lab, they actually had a 4P. And the one on the left is the one I bought with only one hard drive used, and then the school had the 4P. They call it portable, but it's 26 pounds and the size of a sewing machine.
No wheels.
I'll add that I had some screen issues that I fixed with some capacitors that dried out, and it is fully functional. But let's go back to it. Next. So it has a 9-inch green screen, size of a sewing machine. It had two floppies, 5 1/4. It had 64K. Bill Gates would be so happy. And then it had another 64K bank of RAM drive. It had the little squeaky PC speaker. But one thing that was happening, like maybe a year or so after I bought it, the bearing was going out in drive 0. And at that time, Tandy was like they were like going away from the TRS-80 more to the PCs. So you couldn't like get drives and stuff, and if you found them, they're expensive. But I was able to source the bearing when I fixed it, and that lasted about a year or so. So the reason I'm bringing all this up, this is what got me moving toward the Amiga. And then here's it actually working that I fixed it. In high school, I did the periodic table elements in BASIC. And then during COVID, I did an actual subnet calculator in BASIC to see if I could still do it. And I retrofitted it with 3.5-inch floppy. So fried up and dead. Kept it in trouble. And then there's a guy in Australia that actually I bought, has a hard drive. It's an SD hard drive that you plug in the back. And that's kind of cool. And it came with a bunch of software. So in comes the Amiga. So this is 1988. I was ready to plunk down $2,500 on a 386 EGA. And my buddy was in the Air Force in UK for a couple of years, and he came back on leave, and I was telling him about this, and he's like, nah, you need to look at the Amiga. And I'm like, well, what's an Amiga? In the States, we didn't really hear about it. And so he said, you need to check it out. He had an Amiga World magazine, I was looking at it, and he was making fun of my TRS-80 the whole time. So anyway, I go in the Amiga store, or the Commodore store, and I walk in, and Maxine Headroom is there, doing the new tech demo. And I was just like, and I go, I want to see an Amiga. And he said, well, I go, well, I don't want to see a tape. I want to see the Amiga. He said, no, this is the Amiga. This is the 2000. And the rest is kind of history. I bought it. I bought it in that for $2,500. It came with a 3.5-inch 51 megabyte hard drive. I hated this hard drive, this MFM, this ST506. It gave me a lot of problems. I must have restored it at least 5-6 times in the years I had it before I upgraded to a 4000. But it was just a basic Amiga 2000 with ECS, the Fat Agnes, 68,000, and the U. I upgraded it. I put a Supra, a second floppy, the Commodore Flicker Fixer, the 2400 baud modem to get on CompuServe. There was no CD available back then for it at all. And then I actually did, Boardmaster was written in a company in South Dakota that did circuit boards. I actually did circuit boards. Produced the Gerber file, and they manufactured the boards, right? Boardmaster is a wonderful program for that. Perfect Sound, probably brings back memories. Marble Madness, Battle Chess Dragon. I was a big Dragon's Lair fan in the arcade, and I was so excited when I found out that it ran it. Blood Money, Test Drive 2 is another favorite, sort of the sedan. The New Tech demo actually got me into the Art of Noise group, And then the Octamed Amiga nuts just blew my mind when I heard that. So then this is about 1992. I guess the CD-TV was kind of a flop at that point. The Commodore had all these CD-TVs. And they set up a buy direct program. It was $300. You call the 800 number at Commodore and they would ship you one. Back then you could do the Parnet, which was written by Matt Dillon. He did actually two good programs I used. This and Dice's compiler. If you guys don't know about Parnet, which you probably do, it's a modified parallel cable between the two, and it's kind of like RDP today. You could, you had CD access. You could actually access programs from it. Fred Fish came out and did his huge collection. We got the CDXL, Lemmings. Who doesn't love Lemmings? Town with No Name, Snoopy, Grilliard's Encyclopedia, and what goes on. And the Heroic Age of Spaceflight is another phenomenal one at that time. Oh, and I forgot to put one on here. I did put Sherlock Holmes. That was another one. So in all this, in 91 and 92, I dabbled in C. I took 2 college courses. And the reason I bring this up for a couple points was one was Matt Dillon with his DICE standard stood for Dillon's Integrated Development Environment. It was shareware, it came with no floating point libraries. If you registered it, he gave it to you. It went up to OS 3. So when I went into C, it was a Windows, or actually DOS class. It was all supposed to be for PCs. So I went to my instructor, and in Chicago, Motorola's right there, and he worked for Motorola. He was the instructor doing this. And I mentioned, I said, I have an Amiga, I don't have a PC, I don't really want to spend time in your labs. I have a C compiler, yada yada. He said, huge fan. He approved me of using it for the class. The most interesting thing about it, excuse me, I don't remember what the program was, but you had to not only make the programs run, it was some database thing, but he wanted the object code less than 100 kilobytes. And he said in the class that, you're going to have to put in an assembler and all this, and to get full credit, it had to be under 100. Okay. I did mine sloppy, compiled it, looked at the object code, it was like 50K. And I'm like, and I did it again, and I fought it, and I go, something must be wrong. So then I went to him, and I said, I don't get this, I did nothing, this is the size, here's the code. He goes, it's the efficiency of the OS and 68,000. So they got it right. I got my brother and my cousin into the Amiga. My brother actually went to college during that time, and he was doing like D-Base and stuff. But he got the Bodega Bay. And it's really cool because it basically turns your 500 into a 2000. I have, all my machines are working on this list, all of them work. With the exception of the XE, which is now in the cardboard box. But, I fired this one up like a couple weeks ago. And the Bodega Bay gives you 2 5¼ inch drives, a 3¼ inch hard drive bolt on the side, 4 Zorro slots with the IBM, I guess it was ISA at the time. I love this. There's a warning. It will only support a 40-pound monitor. That's a warning. It's got a cool thing of, it's got a little pigtail off the power supply that plugs into the 500 so you don't have to use the brick anymore. So it's one switch, it all fires up. Inside the Bodega Bay you have they're horizontal, so you got the 4 slots. My cards are over the supply. But there's the bottom card is the 386 Bridgeport, the Commodore, and I did a close-up. And this was made by California Access. The hard drive controller, it's a SCSI controller. It came with it. It's the California Accesses too, and then got a Supra 8 meg RAM. And then it uses the Janus Commodore software to do the whole bridgeboard thing. I could not get the bridgeboard to work. It would boot up because it would beep, but I didn't have time to mess with it. But the motherboard and everything on the Bodega Bay and the 500s, they're all in good shape. I got rid of the batteries so they didn't leak. So my 2000, so right at the bankruptcy, I wanted a 4000 from the time they came out. And then when the bankruptcy happened, I wanted one, and they were pricey. They were still like $2,000. Same friend that got me into the Amiga, he goes, no, he goes, I'll find you one. And he found me one local in Chicago. I paid $1,600 for it. It came loaded at the time with an 040, and then you got the monitor. And the guy included PageStream and AdPro, and then I bought the other Klondike. And then you see Schwartz's cartoons. So I upgraded it. It had, I still have the Octagon. All this stuff still works. This quantum hard drive is 30 plus years old now. And it still works, but I retired it and I have the SD solution. I upgraded it. I put the first CyberStorm MK060 in it, which is still in it. I got a total 153 meg. There's like 8 meg on the Octagon, 16 on the board, and then the 128 on the CyberStorm. I bought an Epson parallel table scanner at 600 dpi. I don't remember what year it was, but then Yamaha finally released their SCSI burnable drive. I used Burn It. And then I got the Canon VJC 620, and then they had that Studio Professional that came out. I think it was Stefan. He was a German guy that did that. And I was like the first guy to make t-shirts. That was, you know, excuse me. About 2004, toward the end, when it was like my main PC, it started crashing, and I recapped the power supply and I fixed that, and then I got into the dreaded leaky capacitors and I lost the audio channel, but I fixed it. I hope I'm saying it right. The Aerodine, that's the NIC card. There's two versions that I have. I have the Aerodine 1 and then that's the 2. So I was looking for a replacement for that PC because, you know, the board. I've always been able to troubleshoot down to component level on electronics, but I didn't have any surface mount. And it always scared me because you'll lift a trace. So I was looking for a machine, and this guy, Amiga Man on eBay, he had a 4000 that I could just swap all my stuff and put my my CyberStorm all in it. That's what was my plan. But what eventually happened was that I found a CyberStorm for that 3, and then I upgraded all that. So then I had 2 4000. So it's kind of like it is an addiction. I mean, once you start, you can't stop it. So then Indivision came out with this individual, or I guess it's an indivision scan doubler. It's kind of cool. If you don't know what, it just pops on top of Lisa, and then it scan doubles, and then you can use modern monitors. There's a drawback if you have like a Picasso or another card in it. You got to either have a switch, or the one Picasso, actually you can feed that into it in the middle switch when it boots up so you can see the boot screen. So the replacement upgrades, I've actually put those scan doublers in both of the 4000 desks that I had. And then I got the CyberStorm for it. And then I got the Hydra Amiga net. So since I'm a network guy, I gotta have my stuff networked. I gotta be able to access NAS, backup, and all that stuff. So all my Amigas, with the exception of the 500s, which I want to get on board, so I can network them. So there's the Cyberphone. These little MAUs, Cisco, I got introduced to those with the Cisco 2500 routers. And that basically gives you a 10-base T into it. And the Commodore card uses those, and I believe the NES guy uses it because it has the port on the back. So that's how you actually plug it. Otherwise, you get to use FemNet, which I don't want. And
so
then
the Ethernet port's on the SCSI card in that picture, the lower left-hand corner?
no, that's the Hydra card.
I'm sorry.
The SCSI card's on the right-hand side.
Okay.
So, I got some, let's see, I bought a couple, the guy was selling them out for like $100 a piece, a couple of these GVP 2000s, and then I went on the Amiga database and got the latest firmware and updated the firmware. And then I got doing the SCSI to SD, the version 6. People have a lot of problem with the version 6. I didn't, and I'll explain it, what I found. And I actually, if you go on amiga.org, I did a whole thing on how to set this up, the SCSI to SD card. So it took me like 5 years to get my CCIE, and my life was, and my wife can attest to it, I would come home from work, eat, and I would go down to my Cisco lab and stay there till midnight plus. And I did that for like 5 years. So I found, when I passed the CCIE in January of '09, I said, I'm going to treat myself. And I happened to go on Software Hut, and they had the old stock of the 4,000 Towers. And I talked with Joe, who ran Software Hut, and he said, if you're going to flip this on eBay, I'm not selling it. So Joe, if you're watching, didn't sell it. This is my main machine of my legacy Amiga stuff. So it has there's two versions of this. So this is the SCOM years of the tower. They come with two 060 boards. They're different, and you'll see when I go to the next one in a couple slides. But this one has this Quick Pack Eagle XP is, for all intents and purposes, and I don't know if you guys know Greg Donor, but he has a website full of wonderful information. And I actually talked to him, and I actually fixed some of his power supplies for him too. But that's basically a GVP T-Rex. It's very, if it's not, it's very similar. Jumpers, everything. And then I'll get on to where I had a lot of self-inflicted problems with this machine. But it has a built-in 4091 SCSI. I have a native SCSI hard drive, and then I have the SD card with 4 partitions. But I put the Yamaha in it. What's weird about the tower, and I don't know what the story was, maybe somebody knows the actual story, but the floppy, like back in the day, the Amiga floppies, you put it in, it would recognize it and you'd be on your way. This is actually a PC floppy that the ribbon cable is modified. And to change the disk, like if you're loading the software or loading like the OS or doing anything, where you got to go in and do a manual disk change command. So I don't know what the whole thing was there. I know the Amiga floppies were a little different. I initially put a Picasso 4 in it, but I have, last January, I got the new MNT ZZ9000. Really cool card. It's more powerful than that box because it has 2 600 megahertz ARM processors on it. And it's a nice card. I've had a little trouble with it that I'll mention later. And I've worked with, the team over there is great. I mean, you email them and they talk to you, you can go on their community. I have the, I hope I'm saying it right, the DNAB USB card in it. And in the beginning I was running a Cisco USB 300 NIC, but then now with the MNT, it has a NIC built in it. And then I found online, again, not dangerous on eBay, they had a Sunrise 8512 professional digitizer card, so I got that, and I had fun with that. So this is the ZZ9000. This card, which is like the brains of it, is actually, you can buy it on Mauser, DigiKey. So they basically took that card and interfaced the board to it. But it will do, it does scan doubling, so you'll see the boot screen, and then it boots up. So then it has USB, a NIC, and HDMI. So it gives HDMI natively from me. If nobody's seen one on the right there, that's a Picasso 4. And then this is the NAB USB card.
Excuse me, where does the second connector plug in? Like
The one with the ribbon?
Yeah.
It plugs in the video slot.
Ah, there's a video slot.
So you said the ZZ has got USB?
Yes.
So what do you use the need for?
Well, I haven't really played with the USB on the ZZ.
Yeah.
Because I had that since like 2009 or 10, right after I got it, I put it on. I think the USB, what I read on the ZZ is limited because the NAB has Chris Hodges stack. It uses Chris Hodges stack. I'm not sure if it's internal or in their little boot ROM. One thing about the ZZ is they have a little micro SD card that has basically the boot image for it. And when you do an upgrade, you not only upgrade the software on the Amiga, you got to run the installer, but you have to pull that out and put the latest. And the latest is 1003. And then there's, since we're talking about this, there's iterations of it. There's like no auto boot off you can boot off of the USB. And then this card is also cool because it gives you 256 meg of more RAM. So this Amiga has 400 meg of RAM. But I was having trouble, so like I put it in and it worked for like a month, and then there's two, like, you know, you got the black screen of death and the blue screen of death in Windows. This will give you the red screen of death. And the red screen generally means it's the SD card, it's the ROM. And it'll just sit there and flash at you. If you get a green, I would get that, and then I would get the green screen, which is the RAM, which could mean that it could mean that the RAM is bad in the card. But I haven't found that to be the case. I actually bought another one for my other tower that I haven't installed yet. But how I fixed it the first time is I took the SD card out, I formatted it in FAT32, and I dumped the image back on, and I was okay. Well then, when I was doing all this, getting my presentation ready, my Amiga just went black and died. And it rebooted, and I was getting that evil red screen again. And I was working with the folks at MNT, and they said try different things, and I actually swapped cards because I had a brand new one from them. I reseated the daughter card. The daughter card isn't like attached, it's just plugged in with the connector. There's like no screws or anything on it. So I guess over time it can pop out. But I was ready to give up on it, and then they have the no auto boot image and no RAM. And I did the no auto boot because what happens is the power light will just start fluttering, and then it goes into this red screen of death. And then after I put the image on of no, well, I first, reformatted the card and made sure it was okay. And I actually swapped it with the other one with the full image. But then after I put the no auto boot, I don't know if it was fighting the DNAB, but I never auto booted off of it. But after I did the no auto boot, it's been solid since. And it's fairly cheap. I remember like when the Picasso came out, they were like $800. The Denab is like, I think it's $400 I paid, maybe, and then with shipping from Germany, maybe $450-ish. It's a nice card for everything it gives you. And it'll work. I think it'll work in the 2,000, 3,000, and 4,000. And I guess the story goes he was only going to run like one iteration of it. He's like up to 5 or 6 now, the batches that he ran of it. And then there's the back of the 4000. The dip switches up top are for SCSI options. The audio connector, and then that's a game port, that's built in. And then I got my, I believe that's the Picasso at that time, and then there's that 512-80 Sunrise card. And then at the very bottom I got it cut off, but I had the NAV USB ports, 4 ports in the back.
Question. How would you say that the Z9000 like ranks? Like, is it faster than Picasso and Subdivision? You had them all. So
It seems to be. I notice on certain things it seems to be faster. Like you guys are talking about Magellan. When I load up Magellan with the Picasso, it seemed to like take a while to load, and then I would get the background. With the ZZ, it's like,
is the software good? Like, is it supported like Picasso 96?
yeah. You need with ICOM, you need to get their latest. They recommend the latest Picasso 96, and I think I have 4.3.3, but I think they've increased it. But they recommend that you can use the Aminet version, but they recommend the latest from ICOM.
And that video slot, only the 4000T motherboard has it, right? Like, I think the normal 4000 motherboard doesn't have a video slot. And I don't
Still should all have
It
those.
does?
I think mine has, the tower has 2,
Two, right.
and I think the Ds have just 1 on the daughter card.
The daughter card's there just for the scan doubling, isn't it? I mean, the slot going into the daughter card is just so it can pick up for scan doubling
Yes.
video.
And then one weird thing about the towers, at least on my 2, it has the big DIN. So like if you want to swap a keyboard between a 4000, you can. Because the 4000Ds have a small DIN. That has like the old PC DIN, it's like that big. I don't know why they did that. Maybe they had a bunch of DINs that they had to get rid of, but they don't have the mini DINs. That's one weird thing I think I see about it. It's a nice box though. So, get into my self-inflicted issues with it. It took me 10 years to fix it. Because it would be unstable. It would boot, it would be fine, then it would crash. And I found this hack, this fast blitz. It was supposed to increase the blitter speed, but it just crashed. And then I found another thing with that XP quick pack card. You can only use the 060 libraries that come with it. If you try to use, because I was on the forums and I was with what's his name, Richter,
Mm-hmm.
and he was telling me to go and get this one and that one, but once I did, I got rid of the fast blitz, and I got the original quick pack. And then I was messing with Storm C and Magic Menu. They have a conflict, but they actually have a patch for it. So now that machine is solid. And then the other problem I had too was, so I used Genesis for networking, or for doing to get on the internet. And for some reason with the Denab, which I didn't have a NIC card in it, but the little USB dongle, on exit it would freeze the computer for some reason. So then I switched to Miami DX, and that seemed to fix it. And then I was just going to go over, I'm sure most of you guys know about SCSI. One thing about with SCSI on the 4000T, it's an active terminations. So it has an active termination block on the back. And that's the big thing with SCSI. If you ever have problems with SCSI where you're getting read errors and all that stuff, it's generally your terminations aren't right. And you can't mix and match passive terminations and active. So one thing about this, and the reason I bring this up, is with this SCSI boards, they actually have active terminations on it. So on my 4000, I use the active termination that's built in the machine, and then this is the last in the chain on the other side.
Don't you have the terminator only on the last thing of the chain?
Well, on this, you gotta have it on both sides. You gotta have it on the card.
All right.
On the interface.
Yeah, and then and then this is, you know, most of the devices, this has the active terminations, which work out nice, so I leave this the last of the chain. So when I did this was before like 3.14 was released. So I was only on Boeing Bag 2, and then I upgraded to 4, and you'll see why, and I used 19, and this is all on, if you go on Amiga.org, you'll see my whole thing, but I just thought I'd include it. So you need, to program it, you're gonna have a USB PC. And then you're gonna get, they have a, there's a driver you need to let it recognize the interface on the card. And then you gotta have the software, and you gotta have version 6 or version 5, whichever one you're dealing with, because they're not interchangeable to work. And then that's how you configure it. And then you can just partition them, and it's best to just let the card do it. Like you say, I want this big a partition. Don't mess with the cylinders and all that, just let it do it. And that's what I found that worked best for me. I kept it in SCSI 2 mode because that's what the 4002 does. I left parity on, enabled the termination on that card because it was the last one to change. And it works out pretty nice.
The newest one, the R50, was it 2040 version?
What's that?
The newest SCSI to SD.
Oh, I have not used that. I'm a few years behind.
Yeah, it's awesome. It'll, sorry to interrupt, but if you have a drive, it will copy the contents by itself.
Okay.
It'll just slurp it off, and it uses files. So instead of having to do direct like mapping onto the card,
No.
you can have a hard file that it maps to a SCSI device.
Oh.
Super nice.
And you can see I got this one, Amiga kit.
It just takes that all and then shows up as a drive on this virtual bus, SCSI bus.
It's a SCSI drive off the file.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can have multiple drives?
Yeah.
Like that?
Yeah, CD drives, swappable. Alex will be here later. So.
Yeah, this you can actually, so I did a 32, I did a 16 and a 32 gig SD card, and I partitioned them into 4 drives on that one card. And there's more about, I mean, if you want to read more, you can. What was weird was, before I upgraded to Boeing Bag 4, it wouldn't automatically mount these. And as soon as I did that, I don't know what Boeing Bag 4 did, but then it allowed it to mount. And then when you do the drives on the SD card, just do a quick format and you format them. And I was getting, you know, per sysinfo, I was getting 8 meg transfers. So now we're up to, so I bought that tower from SoftHUD in about January, February, and again, I shouldn't go down these forums. Amiga.org had an estate sale, so there was a gentleman on there selling his dad's collection. And the gentleman's name was Clyde E. Bratton. He was a professor of University of Ohio, and he was the father of the MRI. He actually was he designed the precursor to what we use today. But he had like an open auction or whatever you want to call it. So email me, you got to take the whole lot. And so...
Bring a cargo net.
Yeah, that was the funny part. So I offered him $1,600. He said, take it. He goes, I'm selling the house. The possession is going to the new owner on Monday. You have to come and get it. And I said, well, what do I need? I didn't have a pickup truck at the time. And I said, well, what do I need? He goes, a cargo van. And I'm like, a cargo van? He goes, yes, a cargo van. I go, how much stuff are you talking? He goes, there's a lot. So imagine me going to my wife going, oh, honey, we're going to Cleveland this week. And I rented a cargo van, and yeah, we're going to go. And we made it fun. My wife is, she follows me on all these stupid adventures. So we made it, we camped, and then we went and picked up the stuff. But in the collection, for $1,600, I got 3 Amiga 1000s in the box complete. I got the A2000, another CD TV Professional, that's where I got the CD32, I got another tower. And then he said, when we were loading all this stuff, he goes, here's another case. It doesn't boot, I don't know what it is, but he said, you can have it or I'm pitching it. And I said, yeah, I'll take it. So when I got home, I like opened it up. And I'm like, holy crap, it's an Amiga 1. So when I get to the Amiga 1, I'll tell you why I wasn't booting and so forth. But in this collection, I got 5 Commodore monitors, tons of software still in the plat. I was like a kid in a candy store. I mean, and boards that were like, you know, $800 to $1,000 was all in this stuff that, you know, in this whole collection. Tons of books and ROM manuals. And I had to redo that. So that's my office wall, which is like 90% Amiga and most of that. And Trevor, you'll like, again, your 3 books.
I like the books.
And I'm hoping you'll sign them for me. I brought them. I brought them. So I got a bookshelf to the right full of Amiga stuff, and then I got all this. So I'll just go through the Clyde collection. I sold off 2 of the 1000s. They went to Germany. These German guys bought them. And I kept the best one. And it boots, so that's it right there. Most of you guys know it came with 256 and you could get a module. And I was talking to a gentleman earlier that he was saying that they got neat modules that, you know, you can expand that more now. I always liked the keyboard garage. I thought that was cool. You get the keyboard out of the way. And I think probably the coolest feature that everybody knows is all the names that are embossed at the bottom. Even Mitchie, his little paw prints up there. And then of course, in the debut, you had Andy Warhol and Deborah Harry.
Dick Van Dyke. You want to hold that up there a second? Let me take a look.
Yeah. I tried to reach him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, actually.
Well, that would have been awesome.
I know. He actually sent us a video in like 2006 to the show.
Thanks to all you making it fun. And all the fun you're having with this. Still. Cool.
I hope I'm not boring you with all this, but...
Oh, wait, yeah.
There would be Amiga weekends with the same feature.
Oh, yeah, that's easy to find.
So also in the Clyde collection was the A2000. So I didn't mention that in my original 2000, when I got the 4000, I think they were doing like the toaster people were, because the A4000 wasn't big enough the way they made the case, and they were somehow doing a hybrid between a 2000 case to put all the cards for the toaster. So they were buying back 2000s. I only got like $300 for it, but I sold that back. And I don't have that. I don't have my original machine anymore. So in the Clyde collection, I got the 2000 back, and I didn't even know they made an 060 for it, the Blizzard. And then I love this. So I bought, I don't remember what year it was, 2010 or somewhere in there. I got the 2 meg Agnes, and I was looking on one of the Wikipedia things. It was either the Amigapedia or whatever, and it was the names for it is Super Agnes, Super Fat Agnes, Big Agnes, and Big Fat Agnes. Not to not confused with obese Agnes. So the Indivision, they made a scan doubler for it. They have actually two versions. They don't make this one anymore. This one had a buffer that would actually use a couple of versions of Picasso. It's not stable, and now that I've got the ZZs, I'm going to move some around, and I have a Picasso 2 that I'm going to throw in this. And then I have the Aerodine, the original Aerodine 10-base T-Mic in it. And there's the actual Blizzard board. So then we move up. So I called the one I bought, I call CEH for my initials, and then I call the other 4000 Clyde, because of Clyde. So this one, if you notice, like the 060 card was square. This one has a weird thing where the memory like goes underneath the brackets of the drives, and that's what those. There's an actual bar that sits in between those two memory. And they're different. And what's weird is like they got connectors for SCSI, but the chip wasn't soldered on. I don't know if that was like an afterthought. You had to pay for it. It never came to fruition.
It was an upgrade. You had to buy it.
Oh, you had to buy it?
Yeah.
But my cards don't have the SCSI on the board. So that's a different quick pack. I partitioned it pretty much like my other 4000. This one has the Picasso in it, and the DMAB, and then I have the Commodore, which came in the Clyde collection. I was like opening boxes, like, oh my God, I got a Commodore NIC. And I got that's where I got the two Aerodines too, was in the Clyde collection. It's like, you're opening boxes. I literally, when I didn't finish the story, when I brought the cargo van home, it filled up. I mean, it was 2 boxes high in the cargo van, and it filled up my family room. I spent weeks to a couple months going through all that stuff while I was working. So it took a while, but it was fun. Like I said, I was like a kid in a candy store. My buddy who got me into all this had a CD32, and I thought it was cool, but I never bought one, and that came in it. And then it came with the SX32, and I see they have a new, somebody was making, maybe it's the Amiga store people I saw on their website. Somewhere I saw they're making a module pretty much actually better, because I think you can put like 256 mega RAM on the thing. And then on the back it has a 40-pin IDE, so you can plug in an IDE drive or the adapters that I'll show you in a minute. And then when I was recapping everything, so I recapped everything myself, and I bought a solder station and I recapped all the 4000s and that, and then I recapped. So this is inside of a CD32, and I recapped. Change all the capacitors in it. My finger bounced. There we go. In 2008, I made a rare purchase. There was a guy on eBay that was selling a 4000 motherboard. He said it didn't work, it had yellow screen. So I got it, and I was like looking at it, and I plugged it in and everything. Yeah, sure enough, it was yellow screen. And I was just inspecting the board, and I happened to notice Buster 90 degrees out in the socket. They had crammed that sucker in there. And I took 2 screwdrivers, I pried it out real easy. I put it in the right orientation, and it booted up. I'm surprised it didn't fry the board and Buster. So then, at the time, you could still get Buster 11s, and I got a Buster 11 and I put it in it. So then I had a motherboard with no home. And I said, well, one of my 4000s die, I'll just do that. So then I'm like, I'm going to build, and I went on an Albox. They've sold this thing for years, this mediator, where you can use PC, if you don't know what it is, you can use PC cards, PCI cards, in an Amiga, and it's kind of like the bridge board thing, but it's for PCI. And it comes with 5 slots, and you guys could read about it online. So in mine, I have a Radeon graphics card, I have a D-Link NIC, I don't have a tuner card, it supports tuner cards. I'm using Amiga native audio, and it does the Spider 2 USB. So this was the box my XE came in, the Amiga 1. I guess they were shipped in these tower cases. I didn't like it, so I had transferred the guts of my XE into a nicer case. And I had this case laying around, so I modified it to fit an Amiga board. And I did some heavy modifications. I went to one of my big box stores and got a sheet of aluminum, and I cut that out from the back. And I had to heavily cut out the 3.5-inch drives so it all fit in there.
Those are all IDE cables you're playing with there, right?
No, and there is SCSI in there too.
Oh, okay.
There's SCSI and IDE. So I'm using the 4 gig compact flash to IDE. And you can actually you can pull that flash card out, you can plug in a 40-pin hard drive. Right in that. So here's kind of a down look at it. The mediator it replaces the original daughter card. So the whole theory behind it is that you could to get more space and cooling, and they used to sell, I think it was called Power Tower, but they don't sell it anymore, the actual case. But you could transfer all the guts into that, and then you'd have actual slots like the 2000 used to be. And then this card here on the right is the actual mediator. That's what does all the magic with some files to interpret PCI versus Amiga. And what's cool about that is it actually will use RAM from the video card. And then it uses the boards again. And it is a little spider card, the NIC, and then this is the Radeon. So look at the difference in storage over the years. There's a 4 gig hard drive, and there's a 4 gig hard drive. So now that is all replaced with that. Pretty cool. And notice it's all Cisco.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Well, once you get your CCIE, they put a chip in your head so you can't really find it. So in all this, I'm building the mediator, and I actually brought a card that I had a Cyberstorm 64 video card that I was trying to mess with, and I had the mediator open and I was running it and I was working on it, and I think it was messing with the SCSI to SD at the time. And I go up and my mouse Y up was not working. And I'm like, so I talked to this guy who seems to be the guru of fixing the Amigas, this Anthony Hoffman in New Zealand. And he told me that I'll probably have to, if I have battery damage, I need to replace those 3 chips. So I bought a station for like under $200 that has surface mount with an air gun and soldering station. And I started getting into repairing surface mount. So you can see the battery damage that happened on the board. I guess depending on which way the battery leaks, I'm glad it leaked this way and not that way, because I don't want to mess with the memory slots. Because I've heard horror stories of that it goes to the right and it will just mess up like those 2 memory slots.
Right, Chris?
Yeah. It'll do it all 5.
So I also bought it's an infrared board warmer, because you're supposed to warm it up to like 100 degrees Celsius before you start using the air gun, because you can crack the board.
Yeah.
So without a hesitation, and this is the first time I did it, I used the air gun, and I had a little X-Acto blade, and it got hot and it just popped off. I was really scared of, popping the traces with it. So I popped them off, I cleaned it all up. One thing it seems that the battery acid does, I hear it does damage the actual traces, but what it seems to really get is the rivet that goes through the board. Because on some of it, I've just popped a thin wire in and soldered it and it fixed it. But this one was severe, as you'll see, I had to do a lot of traces. And what was weird is the one clock wire goes all the way back to one pin on the thumb, that long one. But then this is the fix. And I recapped it all. And one thing, if you're recapping, and if you want to dabble in it, the best way I found to do it is take a pair of side cutters, cut the cap about in half, halfway up. Don't get too close because you'll rip the traces off, of course. Just snip it. Pry, and then you can just pull the bottom off because it's rubber. And then I just use this as a no-wash flux with a syringe, and then just about 360 degrees, and you can just take the right off, clean it up, put it back on. Then this was my Cyberstorm that I'm trying to fix. I bought, working with Anthony again via email, we determined that it was a Trios chip. And I bought a PC off of eBay, a card for PC with the Trios chip. And I successfully got them both off, but I'm having a problem with getting it back on because once you take it off, of course the pins are all cattywampus. And to get the pins straight again, I even have a USB microscope when I was doing it like that, but I don't know how to get the pins straight enough to just plop it back on the solder.
Can you get a new chip to replace?
No, that's the reason I bought the PC version, because it was a no good chip, and that was my theory behind it.
Yeah.
And then I actually dabbled in, I actually took the PPC chip off of one of my mediators because, or not, my Cyberstorm, because it was dead. And this is actually a kid's microscope with my iPhone. And they do this balling, if you're not familiar with the balling technique, and it's used to reduce costs instead of having a socket and all that. They basically just put you put this grid over the chip. They're specifically made for the number of connections on the chip. You put flux to stick it, you put the balls on it, and then you heat it really hot and it solders it down. I think it was the PlayStation 3s have a big problem with this, because what happens is you got to get rid of lead, and lead makes it pliable. So they got rid of lead in the solder, or most of it, and then with the heating of how hot the CPUs get, it cracks the balls. And the fix of the PlayStation 3s where you suck it off and put lead-based solder.
Is that why the Cyberstorms are so unreliable?
My guess is for the PPC, yes.
Yeah.
Because that chip gets really
I had
hot.
one which you pressed down on it, it worked.
Until your thumb got hot.
Well, I think it would work for a week, and then it would stop. So,
That was the same thing with the PlayStation 3s that I read, where if you pushed on it, and they had things where you could, like, they had like a little jig or something that you could put on the board
yeah.
to clamp it down. It would work for a while. But, yeah. And it seemed like from my first Cyberstorm to the 3, they really cheapened up the process. Because I'd say my first one made a lot better than the 3. It looks to me that way. So then I can talk to you a little bit about the XE. I don't know, am I going over? Am I okay?
Food's not here, you're good.
So this was the Amiga one that came in that collection that wasn't booting. And I just went through it, and this socket, the CPU socket, is weird because it's got a socket on one side, and then it has standoffs on the other side, and then it has 4 screws that hold on. Well, on mine, the standoffs weren't long enough, so it was cocked. So I I pulled that off, I reseated it, and it booted up. I was like, hey,
Wow.
and then I got the correct size. I had to actually probably manufacture the standoffs. They're little Teflon, spacers. And then there is problems with it. The funniest one I read is that it's based on these Arctic chips, and they didn't have the documentation for them. So that's why a lot of the features didn't work. So the workarounds was basically gut the board, meaning just shut stuff off, and then get a SIG ATA hard drive controller, the StarCom USB, and use the PCI card and not an HUP. And for the most part, it was, I got to rely, well, then I had a few other things. And one nice thing is, and I think the 5000 and that has it too, where you can hook up a terminal and watch it boot. Is that correct, Trevor?
Yeah.
And that's how I found my bad memory. I had a bad memory stick, and I replaced that. And then I had a failing hard drive, and then I tweaked, through the forums and that, I tweaked the DMA and U-boot. And for the most part, I got it really solid, but it would choke on some of the new software. And Candy especially. Of course, Candy chokes my 5000.
It shouldn't.
Even when I had, well, it matters what I'm doing with Candy. So then, okay, so now we're up to spring of 22. I wanted a 5000. And when did the early adoption come out? Was that about that time, February? I threw my hat in the ring on early adoption. I figured they were promising, I'm sure it's a sore spot with Trevor. They were promising by the summer, the new, the 1222 would be out and all that. So then I got looking around, and we started a discussion on the forum, and this one guy went out, and he found that Amiga in France had 5000s, but it was the 040 version. This was a really pricey board. My wife doesn't want to know how much it cost. But it has the 5040. You guys probably know all the specs of it. One problem I have, even with the driver, is everybody that I was watching, I had a 550 in it, and they said, no, the 560 is better, but I have lockup issues with it. I don't know if it's that board. I swapped it back, and then I don't have any more issues. Because what would happen, I'd run like, Emotion? And some of the video would be playing, and it was go, freeze, and then the computer was locked up, which was weird. So I threw my hat in the ring, and then these guys had it, so I said, I wonder who's going to come out first. So Amiga, they said they got a bunch of boards from you guys in the UK, and they were testing them out. And I'm like, waiting. And I did this in May. I ordered this, about 22. And it was about September I got the board. And for the most part, I'm pretty happy with it. And I put it in this case. I took the XE out of the one that I modified to the Mediator. I put it in this case, and then it lost its home when I got my 5000. So at the same time, while I was waiting for the 5000 to be delivered, A-Cube said, well, we're delivering the LE. So I threw my 5040 meets there. So then they said, well, this should be out, by September. January of 23, I got it. So I have this one running. And it has a little more cooler case, I think. So then I'm up to, like I said, it was an early adopter. I got the AAA package. I received this, I want to say over the summer, but I've been too busy. And I'm trying to find a cool case. I I'm tired of towers. I would like a PC case.
I want a keyboard case.
Yeah, or even that. It would be cool if you could put this in like a 1200 or maybe a little bigger or a 500 case. That would be cool to put it in.
Yeah, I wanted like a 1200 style case.
Yes,
For a
I agree too.
The Checkmate A1500 small mini version is quite nice.
But it's not a keyboard case.
And no, but you can sit your monitor on top.
Only up to 40 pounds.
Here's an idea, can you get a little space underneath it to slide your keyboard?
Case is too small.
So, Amiga doesn't really have a printer solution because like all the printers have, you know, they're all specific. Like Canon is specific, you know, they're all specific. But one thing I did find is that this HP and its the model that replaced this emulates PostScript. And if you use NetPower, you can print anything, but you got to have it networked, of course. So I have that printer, and I printed out a lot of my stuff from Final Writer, and it comes up beautiful. So there's a solution for printing. So I also I upgraded most of my firmware on all my boards and stuff myself, and I went through a lot of trials and tribulations with this Willem. And but I think I got all the bugs out of it. I had to buy this module to do the 74 C400s for the OS, for the ROMs. And then the new 322 or 3. Was it 3.22? Or is it 3.222? Whatever the latest iteration of the OS is. The ROMs actually come on the CD. So you can burn them yourself. I was messing around with this on that with the diagnostic ROMs. But I'm always scared to pull out the CPU board because you know one of these times it's not gonna go back. I always thought that was the dumbest design of it, to put the ROMs that you're gonna change underneath the CPU card. And then there's the software. I have a bunch of laptops, old ones. The one thing about the Willem, you can do, it's a parallel programmer. So it has to plug in the parallel port, but they do have the adapters that guys have got this working with. So you can go USB to parallel to get it working. But now, you know, there's a slew of cheap I think I gave $30 for this program. And then I want to thank everybody. I mentioned Greg Donor, PJ Hudson's, his website's really good for tutorials on C and C++. He does for Legacy and the new Amigas. I use the Amiga database a lot. I want to thank all you guys for letting me come up here and bore you for an hour.
And perfect time.